Hey, what's up guys, it's Bakes and thank you for joining me again for day number 10 of my 31 Days of Horror. Today's movie, we're taking it back to 1981, an Italian film by a great Italian director being Lucio Fulci. Today's movie is The House by the Cemetery. One of Fulci's more talked about movies, a lot of people really like this one, but before we get into my thoughts of this, let's quickly run through the plot. So the Boyle family move into this house, the dad or the husband, however you want to look at it. He is continuing this research that was done by one of his colleagues in this house. The colleague ended up dying, so he's taking over the research, and obviously it's a house by a cemetery, and some weird things start to happen. In particular, his son starts to have these visions of these people warning him about the house and some strange things going on, and that's pretty much the gist of it. So let's get into my thoughts of Lucio Fulci's The House by the Cemetery. So as I said in my intro, when it comes to the director Lucio Fulci, this is one of his more popular films, and when talking about Fulci, this one does come up quite often. I'd say the one that gets brought up the most would probably be Zombie, but House by the Cemetery would definitely be up there. My opinion, my favourite Fulci movie would probably be City of the Living Dead. That one's probably my most watched by Fulci, but nevertheless, House by the Cemetery, to be completely honest, it's one that I've never really loved. I've always thought it was okay, not completely terrible, but nothing that's really had me coming back for more. I've always just thought this movie was fine. And rewatching it this time for today's review, opinions haven't really changed. First of all, I find the first two acts of this movie to be quite boring, not unwatchable or anything, but just nothing special. By far, the best part of this movie, and what I think of it most for, is the final act, the climax. I really enjoy that, but otherwise the first two acts I just find to be a little bit slow, nothing too interesting going on. But what I will say is the atmosphere from start to finish in this movie, including the first two acts, is incredible. The atmosphere is genuinely pretty creepy and eerie and kind of tense at parts, and there's this constant feel from start to finish with the atmosphere that I feel is really strong. But as I said, the first two acts I find to be kind of weak overall. As I said, my favourite part of the movie is the final act, the climax. I find the twist to be fun, and there's great gore and effects in that final act as well. Just overall, really cool shit, and I wish the movie was more like the final act, but I guess the first two acts is just more building the tension and the atmosphere and everything, but I'm going around in circles. What I remember this film most for is the final act, because I really do enjoy that. Now, another thing that I hear a lot personally when talking about House by the Cemetery is people bringing up the dubbing of the kid Bob. First of all, if you are unfamiliar with Italian movies of this time especially, it is very common for them to put dubbing over the performances. But the dubbing on the kid Bob, it's just one of those things you have to see for yourself. It's insane. It's so noticeable. And it is honestly quite funny, and it is one of those things that I think back on this film a lot for. The dubbing of the kid and the final act, those are the two things that I remember most from The House by the Cemetery. But it's not even just the dubbing. Getting into Bob as a character, I find him to be really annoying, and it could be nitpicky. I know a lot of people really like this movie, so obviously it doesn't get to people as much as me, but I just find him to be a really annoying character. As I said, take the dubbing out of it even. I just feel I don't know, there's something about Bob that really bugs me, especially in the final act. As I said, I love the final act of this movie. The third act is great, but he's definitely the weakest part of it. I just find it, he's always screaming and crying and nagging, and I perfectly understand, because if you're I don't know how old he's meant to be, let's just say from the age range of 5 to 10, and you're in the situation that the final act is, and I won't spoil anything, you would be screaming, crying, nagging and everything, but I find it to be so fucking annoying. And even in the first two acts, I just find him to be a little bit of a shit. I don't know, it could just be me personally, I guarantee it is, but something about Bob just really doesn't sit right with me. I find him to be a little bit annoying. But yeah, I just thought it would definitely be worth bringing up the dubbing of Bob first of all, because that is, again, something that I personally hear a lot about this movie, and always something that stuck out to me as well. So I actually don't know what else I want to say about this movie. As I said, it's one that I've never loved, and going back and rewatching it this time around, I still stand by it. I just find this movie to be perfectly okay. The best element of this movie is the atmosphere from start to finish, and then a great climax. So If you are interested in Italian movies, I would still recommend this one because honestly, I don't know anyone else that kind of thinks this movie's okay. A lot of people just really like it, so it could just be me coming down to it, but I give all my scores, my personal rating, so I'm going to give The House by the Cemetery, directed by Lucio Fulci from 1981, a 5 out of 10. Just perfect right in the middle there. As I said, the movie's not terrible by any means. I just kind of feel like the first two acts are just a little bit boring. There's not really much substance there for myself. But a great finish to the movie, great climax, cool gore and effects, and I just wish that more of that type of vibe and energy was throughout the whole film, but unfortunately it's not. But as I said, I would still recommend it because just because I say, I'm not a big fan of this movie, there are a lot of people who are. So go and check it out if you are interested in this movie. If you've seen it before, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And I'll see you tomorrow for day number 11 of my 31 Days of Horror. Thanks, guys.